My name is Arshel Brooks Harris.
My name is John Lasker.
My name is Katie Hoff Anderson.
Hello, my name is Dr. Mark Lewis.
So what I really learned about blood clots is that it does not discriminate.
I was a young, healthy 31-year-old.
I'm speaking on behalf of my daughter who doesn't have a voice anymore.
I had just finished law school.
I am a blood clot survivor.
I am a blood clot survivor.
I am a blood clot survivor and a badass.
As we recount these stories of loss, survival, resilience, and strength, it's difficult to stress the immeasurable lives affected by blood clots. The children, spouses, daughters, sons, siblings, and friends, whether genetic or traumatic, we hear the resonance of just how close we come to these life-altering moments day after day. Even in the time we've been producing this show, I've gone from 6-time to 7-time blood clot survivor. What do you say when the voice that begins recounting their story of survival is your own?
Every 6 minutes, somebody in America dies of a blood clot.
We're here to change that statistic. Welcome to Taking a Breath, a Stop the Clot podcast.
A podcast dedicated to bringing awareness of the dangers of blood clots from the clotting disorders community to the world.
With the help of many notable blood clot survivors, we are here to give you the knowledge and the skills that you need to prevent this silent killer.
My name is Leslie Lake. I am the president of the National Blood Clot Alliance, and I am a blood clot survivor.
And my name is Todd Robertson. I am the patient engagement liaison for the National Blood Clot Alliance, and I am a 7-time blood clot survivor.
And we're here to stop the clot. Though our guest today needs no introduction, it is my pleasure to reintroduce my co-host here on Taking a Breath. He is a blood clot advocacy hero, an unwavering resource of strength and hope. This is my friend, Todd Robertson.
So really my blood clot journey begins when I was young and still a teenager, and I was still in high school. I was actually supporting my family because my dad had left, so it was just me and my mom. I was in a single-parent household, and she called me at work, actually, at a job that I had right after high school, and she asked if I could come home and take her to the hospital. And I said, why? And she said she was feeling chest pains, and she was short of breath, and she just wasn't feeling well. And of course, I'm just a kid, so I'm not telling her call an ambulance. I'm just kind of hearing all this information and doing what she's asking me to do. And so I rushed home and got her into the car, which was very difficult. She was a very big girl, and she could not walk very well at all because she was short of breath. And got her into the car and was on our way to the hospital, and we were kind of having a conversation, and then I noticed she stopped answering me. So I turned to my right. They're looking over at the passenger seat, and her lips were blue and her eyes were open, but she was not breathing. I went to a drugstore right down the street. I ran in and had them call the ambulance, and they let me ride up front in the ambulance when they came and got her, and we stopped several times on the way to the hospital as they delivered shock. The driver was telling me that whole time kind of what was going on, which I appreciated, but I was pretty much in a panic state. And we got to the hospital. I remember sitting in the lobby. I remember nurses coming out and hugging me and saying, "You poor thing," and all this other stuff. And then finally they said, "Your mom has passed away. Why don't you come on in and have a look?" And so I had to go in and I saw my mom, and it was a rough thing. All I knew is I was alone, but they did mention the word blood clot. But I didn't focus on it because I had just lost my only parent, and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do now. But I did not connect up that blood clot to my own blood clots until much later in my life. But that was a very difficult moment, and it was a life changer in many ways. the reason why she died wasn't as important as the moment of me being left. And that's the way that I felt, right? I felt at that time abandoned. I became bitter. I became angry. I lashed out at the world. I was a different person and ended up making some bad decisions, early on in my life because I had no parental guidance. She must have did a really good job in the beginning because I never ended up in jail. I'm not on drugs. I ended up a pretty darn good guy. So I know she did a really good job, in my younger years, but all of a sudden she wasn't there anymore. And so I made some stupid decisions and I had to, let's just say I grew up a little late. The National Blood Clot Alliance does such a great job of putting out awareness and educating people. Imagine what it was like in the mid-'80s, okay? There was zero awareness. Blood clots were not mentioned, okay? Her clotting disorder, the one that she shared with me, was not discovered for another full decade. So there was no, here's your risk factors, okay? She had the perfect storm of risk factors. She was obese, extremely overweight. She was never moving, was always sitting on the couch because she was depressed from what happened with my father, and she never got out of that mental mode. She smoked. I mean, she had 4 or 5 risk factors, and so you combine that with the clotting disorder, it's absolutely no surprise that she suffered a fatal pulmonary embolism. So, but, I was curious. Now, when I think back, I wish I could ask her, did you ever feel the pain in your calf? How long were you short of breath? How long was this going on? What symptoms did you feel? So I'm factor V Leiden, but I had went most of my life without ever having a problem with a blood clot, with any health issue. But then I suffered an accident. I was loading a tandem canoe on the top of a canoe trailer at work, and I slipped and I fell backward, and the hook and the bar went into the back of my leg. And so I was literally hanging, literally like a fish. I know what they feel like, except it wasn't in my mouth, right? It was in my leg. I'm upside down. I actually had to do an upside down pull up to pull my leg off the hook. And because I had wilderness first aid training, I knew that the bleeding was bad. I took off my belt. I grabbed a stick. I made a self tourniquet. I tried to stop the bleeding. I got on the phone to the sheriff. The sheriff was talking to me for about 3 seconds. I was in a remote area. We lost the phone signal. We were never able to get back in communication with each other during that time. So I tightened up the tourniquet, wiped off the blood, hopped in the company car, and I drove myself to the ER. They stitched me up. They cleaned the wound. Everything was, hey, you got hurt, but you can go on home. 3 or 4 days later, I walked into the bathroom to use it. I looked down at my foot, and my foot was completely purple. And I knew that purple was bad because my wife had died from brain cancer just a few years before. And when she was in hospice, as her body was shutting down, it would be splotchy purple. So when I saw my foot turn purple, I knew. I did not connect it with a blood clot. Blood clot did not enter my mind. What happened to my mom did not enter my mind. This is a purple foot. She died in the car. To me, it was a completely different thing. I knew that it was bad, and I probably should have called the ambulance, but I actually hopped in the car and I drove myself to the hospital, and I was diagnosed with my first DVT that came about from that injury. So it was from that trauma. I like to say that was the trigger event that started my clot journey, and factor V was the fuel that fed the blood clots. To me, I'm not a doctor, but I'm saying that's not the thing that makes you clot. There's got to be some kind of a trigger, some kind of a risk factor, something that's going to fire that up. So, and that's what's happened with all my blood clots. And again, I could be wrong, but that's how I see it from my point of view. That there was that trigger event, it started it, and then I had a couple of other blood clots after that before I was actually tested and diagnosed with factor V Leiden. I've been through a lot of trauma and challenges in my life, so it's not just the blood clots that I've formed some resiliency against. There's just a lot of stuff that's happened, but I've gotten to the point with the blood clots I've accepted that I have an aggressive blood clotting disorder. Hey, kicking and screaming is not going to do anything, right? So I manage it, and I manage it well. But I have a lot of confidence moving forward, even if I were to have another blood clot. As far as prevention, my DOAC, the anticoagulant that I'm on, I trust it, and I trust anticoagulants. They're out there for a reason, and they do a job. And you just got to make sure you take it right. So as long as I know that I'm managing everything properly, I don't only just take my DOAC properly, but I also sometimes pretend that I'm not on it and that I'm managing risk factors. I think you should work with a DOAC like that, not let it do all the work. That's how I approach it. I'm always managing the risk factors. But I look at it as, look, I've been through these challenges, and now I've had 7 blood clots. Will I get an 8th one? You know what? A couple of years ago, I would have said, I think I've got this so under control, I don't think I'll ever suffer another abnormal blood clot. In fact, I've said that to people many times. Now that I've suffered my 7th blood clot, I don't say that anymore, because you know what? Is there going to be an 8th blood clot? Is there going to be a 9th blood clot? Well, maybe. I have been very blessed to make it this far in my life after losing so many people when they were young. I mean, I'm literally the only one left, right? And so I have a lot of reason to be grateful. And through gratefulness, I always like to say optimism is sustainable. And that's why I got the tattoo on my arm saying the same thing. It's like what Michael J. Fox said is absolutely true. And I follow that word for word. And the more gratitude I give, the more optimistic I become. I look at my future as being, you know what, I plan on living till 90, man. I think I'm going to make it. I think I'm going to be on my mountain bike. I think I'm going to be having fun, because that's how I see myself. I'm not looking at blood clots as something that's going to end me and take me out. Could they? Yes, but they're taking out the unaware, not so much the ones that are aware and are educated and understand risk factors and symptoms and know how to be their own advocate. But I think that all the optimism, and I have a lot of faith too. I'm a man of faith. I use that. I use nature therapy. I use a lot of things that work for me that make me feel strong within myself and give me confidence. And it took me a while, but now I've got a good DOAC, good doctors. I've lost 80 pounds. I feel like I'm doing everything I can to be healthy at the age of 60. And I don't see why I wouldn't be around till I'm 80 or 90. But I'm always going to have to manage blood clots, and I'm always going to be grateful for the experience that I've had, because now I can share that education and that awareness with other people. And because we have a lot of awareness to raise. Remember, I said in the mid 80s we didn't have any. We have some now, but we have so far to go. We have to make sure people are listening. So I need to make sure I'm around and as healthy and as optimistic as possible, because I want people to see that there is hope. Even though you're going through this, it doesn't mean life is over. Okay, but you got to give it time. You have to be patient. I don't know about you, but I'm a very impatient person. And I think people are very impatient in recovery because they want to feel better the next week, right? I did. But sometimes we just have to let it take its course, and you'll see some light at the end of the tunnel. Just got to give a little time.
Okay, so wow. Who would have thought a year ago we would have a podcast that we would reach tens of thousands of people sharing amazing stories, people who are famous, who are Olympic athletes, to the everyday person about their blood clot experience. And, we were thinking about, gosh, who do we close out season 1 with? There's so many great people. And then my partner goes off and gets a blood clot.
I sure did, didn't I? You couldn't have wrote that Hollywood story. I mean, the timing, yeah.
Cannot make this up. And it was, first of all, you scared the bejesus out of me.
Sorry about that.
And I'm glad you're okay. And I'm glad you're so compliant with taking your medicine, which is a really strong message to send to people.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a reminder to me because sometimes, we live this every single day, and I don't want to say we become immune to it because we're not, but you don't think about it happening to you again. And this was a reminder to me how fragile life is and how silent and sneaky blood clots are, and how neither you nor me is immune from getting another one, no matter how small the odds may be.
It's, one thing I've learned is such a complex, complicated thing. I mean, blood clots, we understand them and we don't understand them, right? It's like,
Yeah.
why did I clot? And some people never find out, and there's so many little trigger factors and risk factors that sometimes we're not even aware of. Sometimes we just don't think about that stuff. But I'm telling you, Leslie, from the time I started working with you at the National Blood Clot Alliance, seeing the progress that we've made as far as our reach, how far out we go with our awareness, and how many people are responding to like the education that they feel empowered as advocates for themselves, which to me has always been one of my big goals, to make people feel more empowered as their own advocate. Because even if they have great doctors and they have their big family and all this, you still have to advocate for yourself because only you are in your body. So you've really got to manage yourself. And I think that people are walking away empowered. I think people are very engaged in talking about their experiences where before maybe they didn't want to talk about it. We have the support group now, which people can just, share their stories and share their concerns and share their sadness, because people go through this grieving stage with blood clots. They stop being able to do, for at least a short time, things that they were so used to doing and having fun doing. And they miss that life. They miss what they were doing. And that's grief. And so they have to deal with that too. And I just think it's a blessing for me to be able to have access to so many patients. And the National Blood Clot Alliance made it possible for us to have our support group, and we put together that share your story thing, which is so popular because patients heal by sharing their story and talking about what happened to them. It actually makes them feel a little bit better. So we have all these things at the National Blood Clot Alliance, and I just couldn't be more proud of what we've accomplished. And have we saved lives? Absolutely. That's the main goal, but I want to see that education continue because we're always learning. You and I are learning on our pep talks. Every time we do a pep talk, I've got a whole legal pad full of notes of things that I didn't know before. And so it's a constant, ever evolving learning environment. And I feel real lucky to be where I'm at and to work with you as well.
Well, I think the important thing is, like, as much as your most recent clotting event really scared me, I was able to come back and take strength and solace from NBCA because we had the education, we had the awareness, we had the training, we had the support group. And, that just helped me deal with your situation.
Right.
And I know it helps so many people deal with their own personal situation, but it is a very, very strong reminder as to why you and I do the work that we do, because blood clots aren't going away. And
No.
we need to raise awareness, and we need people to share their stories, because it is the most important thing that we can do, share those stories and help us raise awareness. So my friend, I am glad you're okay. I am really looking forward to season 2 with you. I would appreciate it if you do not have another blood clot.
I really don't. I really don't want another one. No.
I'm looking forward to continuing our cause here on behalf of the National Blood Clot Alliance.
I am too. Leslie. I don't think, I've done a lot of fun things in my life, and I think I've accomplished quite a few things with different occupations that I've had. But I got to tell you, this is probably my favorite place to be. It's my favorite place to be because I already went through that hell, right? I've already had the 7 clots. I've been dealing with this for 13 years. I feel like it's just a part of my fabric and I can deal with it. And so I really like being around to talk to other people and above all else, let them know that there's some light at the end of the tunnel. You can go to sleep tonight. You're going to wake up tomorrow morning. Don't worry. You're going to be okay. We can help you as the National Blood Clot Alliance. We can help you with support. We can help you with a little bit of guidance. Make sure you're heading in the right direction, but we'll listen to you. We listen to you because we are family. We are all blood clotters. We are all survivors. We have lost people. We are all in the same boat, and we just need to keep paddling in the same direction, which is a very positive direction.
I know we're going to accomplish great things. And when I refer to you as my blood clot brother, I mean it.
Well, thank you, sister. I've always wanted a sister. Now I didn't even. I should have known you were my blood clot sister. But it is blood clot family, right? Everybody that we work with,
Absolutely.
all of our patients that come in, and the patients feel like that. They feel like they're part of a collective unit that's all on the same page, and that's why we all feed off of each other. I get inspiration and motivation from other patients, just like they may get it from me. I'm seeing someone go out and run, 50 miles. And I'm like, wow, that gets me fired up to go. Sometimes I need that motivation too. So we're all helping each other. And I think there's a lot of love there and a lot of drive to just save lives. Let's just do that.
As we close out this season here at Taking a Breath, we want to remind you that this work has only just begun. Your engagement and commitment to these conversations week after week has been so impactful in knowing that the work we do here is making its impact and saving lives. Thank you again for joining us on this journey.
We know the patient because we are the patient. Together with listeners like you, we can collectively stop the clot.
Another Everything Podcast production. Visit everythingpodcast.com, a division of Pattison Media. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast.